As Loki falls, your heart plummets alongside him. Maybe you should just toss yourself off the cliff too. Things probably aren't going to work out too well for you if your lifeline has just killed himself in a bout of reckless heroism. Though you have to admit, the reckless heroism is, in and of itself, pretty swoon-worthy, provided that he doesn't actually die in the attempt. You find yourself at the lip of the cliff again, realizing belatedly that you had scrambled back to the edge as soon as he disappeared over it. Loki would probably be upset about that, wouldn't he? He only just snatched you out of harm's way. But then he threw himself off the cliff, you think, so he can't really judge. Somehow, he seems to fall more slowly than Roslyhoff, but you're pretty sure that's not how physics works, so maybe your mind is just cracking up a little under the stress, making your senses distort. A shimmer of light glides over him midway down the canyon, and your stomach lurches as his form slides and morphs, a massive black raven streaking straight towards the foaming river below. His angle changes sharply and suddenly, and the bird that was Loki skims along the water for a moment before diving beneath the surface, quickly out of view. The entire thing, from the avalanche of rocks until now, couldn't have taken more than a minute or two.
Idiot! How can he leave me like this?
You think, tears blurring in your eyes. But then, some other part of you is almost proud of him. You can't help but wonder, too, if he would jump after you like that. So quickly, so instinctively. Common sense and reason tell you not to count on it. But the part of you that's quickly starting to crave his company likes to imagine that he would. Behind you, there's just chaos. Gjalep is still sobbing, and Heidor is apparently the only one out of the three of you who has it together enough to stand and face the crowd of frost giants who are rushing down the path to find out where their king ran off to so suddenly. She's rattling off something in her language you can't understand, and when you turn to look over your shoulder, you see that she's addressing the Valva. The old woman seems remarkably calm about all of this, and you don't know if that should be reassuring or infuriating. How can she just stand there looking so emotionless? Even if she doesn't really care about Loki or Greep, Roslyhoff is practically her family. As you watch the Valva nod slowly, you realize that whatever Heidor is saying, it doesn't sound like the language the other giants occasionally use in the palace. Apparently, you aren't the only one to notice, because as a ring begins to form around the three of you on the edge of the cliff, one of the bigger guys pushes his way forward, impatient.
Enough with your serpent tongue, said Kona. What has become of Loki Laufeyson?
Silence falls. Apparently that's considered pretty rude, even for giants. Skadi and Bylester are just making their way into the circle as the Valva gives an odd little half-smile and points down into the canyon. Skadi's eyes are wide. You wonder if it's sincere concern, or if she's just riding the wave of panic from nearly getting crushed by a waterfall of rock.
What has happened to the king, Speaker? How did he fall?
Heidor blinks slowly, and you worry that she's about to faint. You know you're definitely on the verge of it.
The king has gone to retrieve my brother Roslyhoff, as well as your kinswoman, Lady Skadi.
Murmuring breaks out at that, and you edge away from the cliff, though the idea of crawling closer to the giants isn't very promising either.
Perhaps Loki Laufeyson thought to flee his impending battle with Managar. A liar prince, and a coward, like all of the Aesir.
One of the other frost giants barks out, hefting what looks to be some kind of club over his shoulder. The whispers from some of the giants standing near him seem to indicate that a significant portion of them do think that Loki is actually crazy enough to risk cliff diving to escape a fight. Your fists clench. Surprisingly, it is Bylester who responds.
Silence, Sneerima. You speak of your king.
Would he have survived a fall from such a great height? With his wounds still so fresh with dark elf magic, and after spending his satyr to shield the camp.
Skadi asks, turning towards the prince.
Oh no. Is she trying to say that he's dead? Loki can't be dead. He can't be.
You curl in on yourself, shivering. Shivering, but not freezing. Which must mean...
He's alive!
You blurt out, battling the urge to scoot backwards as the sea of red eyes turn their attention towards you. No one tells you to be quiet, though. They all just stare. The Valva still has that creepy half-smile on her face, and Skadi's eyes are quickly narrowing. So you look towards the only face in the crowd that seems completely neutral. Bylester. Your voice is shaking, but they already think that you're weak and useless, so you guess it doesn't matter too much.
His magic! The king's magic! I can still feel it on me. His charms are still working, so he can't be...
Why does the mortal speak?
One of the other giants asks, the ridges on his forehead creasing as he frowns at you.
We should return to the palace with Prince Bylester. This folly with Odin's son is ended.
Another says. And then another giant chimes in, a pointy-eared woman standing just behind Skadi's shoulder.
No, we must continue to Jormungandr, to meet with Prince Helblindi and relay all that has happened in his absence.
This entire journey's been cursed from the start.
Watch your tongue, Hrimthurs. Your kind may not abide by us, but the Skogar Jotnar are true to their word. And Queen Farboti has pledged our loyalty to Loki Lofison.
An older frost giant snaps.
Please, somebody say that you're going to help Loki.
You pray, your eyes starting to water and sting. If they don't, you're likely as good as dead. Because even with all of his strength and magic, there's no way he can make it all the way back up here alone. Bylester is still studying you. You have to give him credit. You expected him to be a lot more satisfied with the fact that his usurper half-brother is probably on the verge of dying and being out of his way for good. He holds out his hand.
Come here, Unanga.
Your face blanches, but there's no one there to protest for you. Gjalep is too much of a mess to notice or care that you might be in danger, and it's not like you can really blame her for it. Knees shaking, you push yourself to your feet, tottering over to him as the giants all seem to inexplicably grow taller and more menacing. Fear is funny like that. Not knowing what else you can possibly do, you gingerly take Bylester's hand. He raises it slightly, presumably so that everyone has a better view, and a faint blue sheen creeps over your skin. There's a faint stinging, and you flinch, but nothing happens.
The mortal spoke truly. My cold will not burn her. My brother's magic is still intact. This means that he must live, does he not?
He looks to the Valva, who just nods.
Then we will go deeper into Ymir's teeth, and hope to intercept them further down the path. Can you lead us further down, Lady Skadi? Closer to the river?
It will lengthen the journey, sire, but I can.
There is no point in the journey without the king and his wolf slaying. Make ready to travel, and do it with haste.
To say that you're shocked would be an understatement. It would be really nice if he did let go of your fingers now, though.
Very well. We will need to push the damaged sleighs into the canyon, lest they gather ice and impede our return.
Skadi pulls Gjalep to her feet, quickly passing her off to one of the other women. Apparently, she isn't the comforting type. Unsurprising.
See it done. Come along, mortal. You will be riding with me now.
And then he turns, pulling you after him through the throng of gathered giants. He sits cross-legged before you, his chin resting in his hand. A few other giants are lounging in the back of the sleigh, but Bylester has seated you in the very front, surrounded by a mountain of scarlet pillows. You aren't really sure if that's meant to make you feel more secure or more trapped. At the moment, you're kind of bouncing back and forth between the two.
Do you truly fear him? Can a mortal feel such loyalty? And to a creature such as Loki in Ili?
He says, following what has probably been the most uncomfortable silence in your life. You open your mouth to reply, then realize you don't know what to say, so you close it again. Bylester continues to stare at you. What would he look like, you wonder, if he had the same light eyes and pale skin as Loki? Would he be any less frightening?
You are very frightened.
Yes, you whisper. There's no point in lying. Even if he couldn't smell it, your teeth are practically chattering, and only some of that can be blamed on the cold.
I can see the question in your eyes, girl. You may ask it.
Okay. Why did you tell them to go after him? I didn't think you would, especially with the others saying what they're saying. Your mouth feels like cotton, but since your usual defender isn't around to keep you safe, it can't hurt to entertain the brother who's currently in charge, can it? Bylester leans forward slightly, running a finger down your cheek, and your heart pounds, but you're able to keep yourself from lurching away. He doesn't look menacing, really, just fascinated.
These tears you've shed, are they for him or yourself?
Both. For the others too. They've been kind to me. You picture Greep curled up happily with Snowball, and Roslyhoff's cheeky grin, and Loki, and your eyes start to well with tears all over again. Is he really alive? You don't know how the magic works. Maybe the spell is feeding off of you somehow, making it last. Maybe he's down there in the river, broken and bloody, worse off even than when he was when he first found you. Bylester's hand drops away.
Have I not been kind to you?
You don't answer.
The others despise him because they do not want a son of Asgard on the throne of Jotunheim. Even if he has Laufey's blood, even if the customs demand it. They think that Helblindi should be king. He is very much his father's son, though less clever, perhaps, and more brutal.
And you? Bylester smiles.
I despise him because he laid waste to Utgard, all to please his false father. He killed our father.
Then the smile slides away.
Though, I must admit that I understand his actions as well. The legacy of ancient kings can be bitterly oppressive.
I don't understand. Stretching himself back against the cushions, Bylester gives a half-hearted shrug.
As I've said before, I will wait to see how my brother Helblindi chooses to act. My mother swore loyalty to Loki Laufeyson, for now, and I see no need to break it. And for his part, Loki is clever. I cannot help but wonder if he truly is as great as he claims to be. I always was the curious sort.
After a tense hour or two of answering the prince's questions about Earth, which seemed to have no discernible rhyme or reason, he leaves you at your end of the sleigh, moving to talk to the giants at the opposite side. They don't bother speaking in any language you can understand, and you're kind of relieved, because it makes it easier to tune them out. You don't know what to do with yourself, and some desperate, pitiful part of you just wants to turn back the clock to the last time you were sleeping on Loki's chest, his arms wrapped around you. He may be a little crazy and dangerous, sure, and wildly unpredictable, but you trusted him. It might not be smart, but you just felt it in your bones. And so, you curl up into a tiny ball, praying to anyone who might be listening that they all somehow made it to the bottom of the canyon in one piece, and they didn't shatter and drown on impact, and that they're still breathing. The path is even sharper now, so steep that you can actually feel the incline pulling you closer to the wall of the sleigh. If it wasn't for the woolly rhinos' claws digging into the packed snow on the trail, you'd probably be careening wildly down the slope. That thought just makes you feel sick. You doze off for a while, but you can hear the rumble of the boulders and Gjalep shrieking every time you close your eyes. Eventually, you sleep long enough to dream, but it isn't pleasant. In your dreams, Loki's skin shifts and morphs into a terrifying, unnaturally large black bear, and then he starts to chase you through the snow. You try to run, but you're moving as though you're swimming through molasses, and he's almost on you when you start to wake, your head cracking against the wall behind you. Pushing yourself up, you wipe the sleep from your eyes, wondering if this was all just a terrible, terrible dream. But it wasn't. You're still in Bylester's sleigh.
We are stopping now to rest the animals, Inunga. We are much deeper into the canyons now, and the path is difficult. You may go outside.
He tells you. Normally, your answer to that would be a resounding hell no, but you would much rather be with Gjalep or Heidor right now. They're probably the only other people in this entire convoy who want Loki to appear as badly as you do. You figure you're supposed to wait until he leaves. That is how royalty works, right? They do things and everyone follows. The cold bites into your skin as your boots hit the snow. The warming charm is fading, you realize. Does that mean that Loki is fading too? Or is that it's just been a while since he renewed it? Gjalep is huddled in on herself by the fire someone hastily built, one of the other frost giants sitting with her arm around her shoulders. You hesitate, unsure if your presence will be welcome. What if she blames you? Griep was focused on saving you when she... You blink fiercely, and thankfully, the tears don't come down this time. It's a good thing, too. In the cold wind, they might freeze. Time passes. You don't know how long. Time has stopped to mean anything in this place. When they tell you to wake, you wake. Otherwise, you just sleep. The sun doesn't shine any longer, and the heavy gray clouds make you doubt that it was ever there at all. Some inkling of scientific curiosity makes you wonder how long the days are on Jotunheim. How many days have passed on Earth? Has it been long enough for them to report you missing? Long enough for them to declare you dead? Heidor finds you standing on the edge of the path, trying to see down into the shadowy ravine below. The snow is falling now, and your breath ghosts in front of your face. He has to be alive, doesn't he? The others may have little faith, but my brother is not weak, and neither is your master, she says after a moment or two, placing her hand on your shoulder. You glance up, but she's staring down into the darkness too. You wonder if she can see anything more than you.
Lady Skadi, do you smell that?
One of the giants standing watch suddenly calls from a little farther down the path. Skadi isn't far from you, and you can see the confusion in her eyes as she stands from her place by the fire.
I do. Jotun blood.
You run down the path, slipping and sliding on the ice. It's stupid, and it might get you killed, but if it is his blood, then he needs help, and you're all he's got. Even with a moment's delay, Heidor catches up quickly, and soon there's a whole trail of giants following behind you, driven by either the curious scent of their king's blood, or by their desire to see Loki's mortal foolishly slip and fall to her death.
There!
Gjalep cries, and you squint as the wind burns your eyes, struggling to make out any movement as your strange entourage makes it to a sharp bend in the road. It looks as if the snow itself is moving on the edge of the cliff at first. Then you see the shining dark eyes and the flattened ears of a very, very contrite-looking Melraki. He scrambles, or is likely tossed over, the lip of the cliff, and he staggers for a step or two. Then he rolls on his back, his tongue lolling out from his mouth as he pants furiously. Heidor claps a hand on her mouth, a sudden sob of relief torn from her throat. A blue hand grips the icy rock of the ledge only a second later.
What?
Skadi begins, but Greep's limp body is shoved onto the snow next, and the king climbs up after her, covered in ice and blood, his breathing ragged. His eyes are fire as he surveys the silent throng around him, chest heaving. But then, Gjalep falls to her knees at his feet, clasping his hand.
Sire, thank you. Thank you.
Loki looks down at her for a moment or two, apparently dumbfounded. He carefully extracts his hand from hers, awkwardly patting her on the head. He says nothing. Instead, as whispers start to break out amongst the crowd, he stalks over to the mewling snowball, fixing him with a deadly glare.
Change. The longer it's out of its socket, boy, the worse it'll be.
There are plenty of disapproving gasps as Snowball melts and morphs away, leaving a very gray, very miserable-looking Roslyhoff in his place. Heidor doesn't look very surprised, but she also seems frozen in place, as if she's afraid that if she starts to move, she might find out that he's not really there at all.
Sit up.
Loki takes Roslyhoff's arm and twists it none too gently, and your stomach lurches as his shoulder pops back into place with a sickening crunch. Roslyhoff wails, and his sister seems to finally break free from her trance, rushing to cradle him in her lap. There's a lot of talk in the background, but it all drowns out in a blur.
He's okay.
Skadi is kneeling by Greep, who, unlike Roslyhoff, isn't even conscious. The blue almost entirely seeped from her skin, leaving a stony gray in its wake.
Does she live?
She asks, looking over her shoulder to where Loki stands swaying. You want to run to him, but you don't.
Yes. Take your brother to the Volvis sleigh, Heidor. Bylester, if there are any healers among you, you'd best have someone fetch them. Gjalep.
She looks up at once, though she keeps her sister's hand pressed against her cheek.
Yes, sire?
As he steps closer, there's a look on his face that you'd almost describe as gentle.
I am going to have to cause your sister a great deal of pain. Her bones have begun to heal too quickly. I am going to have to break them to mend them. Do you wish to accompany me, or remain behind?
I will stay by her side.
Loki nods once and then stands. You wonder if anyone else notices how he lurches slightly to the side as he does. How badly is he hurt?
Someone bring her then, and quickly.
He stalks past the rest of the crowd, and then back towards the sleighs, barely hesitating as he snatches up your hand to pull you along with him. His skin feels like cold fire, and you gasp. Glancing down to where your hands are joined, Loki frowns, and the burning eases a little. There's no heat left in him, you realize. No warmth, and probably almost no magic. Considering all that just happened, you don't feel like it would be very wise to complain about your own discomfort. You can't really tell the sleighs apart from one another, but when he throws open the door to the one he's dragged you to, you realize it's the one you've been sharing with Gjalep and Greep, and him. There's a bit of a manic, distract sort of look in his eye as he unceremoniously lifts you by the waist and heaves you inside the sleigh. And then, one of his cold, cold hands is cupping your cheek.
Are you warm enough? Are you hurt?
No, you whisper, and then the dam breaks and the tears start to flow, and you throw your arms around his neck as you silently sob against him. You thought he was dead. Loki stiffens, and then gingerly pulls you away from him, his eyes narrowing slightly.
What has Bylester done to you?
He asks, his voice deadly soft.
Has he touched you? I can smell him on you.
He spits it out, like he hates to even admit that he can. He had me ride in his sleigh, That's all. He didn't do anything bad. It's okay. I'm okay. You try to force a convincing smile, but you're such a mess right now that it probably looks more pathetic than encouraging. He studies you for a moment and then nods, like he somehow scanned your brain for lies and you had come up clean.
Good.
You feel a sharp loss as he pulls further away from you and hops back out into the snow, but he isn't quite quick enough to hide the fact that there's genuine relief in his eyes.
Stay here. Open the door for no one but myself. I'll be back soon.
It feels like hours before he comes back, but it's probably been less than one. A servant helps carry Greep into the sleigh, and when she's settled, Gjalep curls up around her, burying them both in blankets. You can't tell very much about her condition, but she is a little more blue at least, and the fact that she's even there must mean that she's on the mend. Loki leans out the door and barks orders, and the sleigh is already lurching into motion by the time he collapses beside you.
Warm me.
He says, the dark circles under his eyes so pronounced now that they can be seen even through the blue of his skin. You like to imagine that he says please, because you're pretty sure he's thinking it. You gather every blanket you can reach and climb into his lap. His arms wrap around you beneath the layers and layers of covers, and then he starts to slack almost at once. You want to ask him 1,000,001 questions. How did he do it? Did he already know about Rossihoff? Is Greep going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? But you do know he's spent, so you hold yourself back. They can wait. Instead, you tentatively slide your fingers through the edges of his hair, which is slightly damp from melting ice. He hasn't even taken the time to use his magic to dry it, or maybe he just didn't have any magic left. Loki?
Yes.
His voice is so soft you can barely hear him, and you press your cheek against his chest. I'm really, really glad that you're okay. He hums an acknowledgement, and his hand comes up to cradle your head, almost as if he's pressing you closer to his chest. When you finally sleep, the nightmares don't dare come.